Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Paige Smith and I'm a student majoring in communication and media at Clarkson University. Today we are hosting a conversation with Marianne Ashley, Mayor of the Village of Canton. Joining her is JoAnn Rogers, a village resident, and Donna Seymour. All three are members of the St. Lawrence County branch of American Association of University Women. Welcome. Donna, will you get us started?
Thank you very much, Paige. Well,
Yes.
Marianne, it is so nice to have you back here in the studio. The last time you were here was for a conversation with candidates, and it was your first try at running for mayor. You were a village trustee, and you were one of those crossover candidates. You were a Republican running on the Democratic ticket, and it must have worked because you got 70% of the vote. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You've had a little time now in the mayor's chair, and I'm sure that it's not quite the same as what it looked like from the other side of the table as a trustee, but let's get started. JoAnn's got some questions to ask you about how things are going and what to expect this spring in the village.
Okay.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
So we were wondering about this year's budget process and what's happening with the budget.
Well, we have just started our budget process. The village board did a great job last year crafting a budget that included cut in spending. We paid off some of our debt. We really worked hard to try to get the rate down, and we were successful. It wasn't a large decrease in our tax rate, but it was a small decrease. So the process as it is now is I've asked our budget officer to go to zero-based budgeting, which means you start at zero. And we've asked the department heads to develop goals for the programs and look at the financial package and put together what they envision for the village based on needs. And don't look just for next year, but look 5-10 years down the road. So we're starting with a zero-based budgeting process. And that, the next step is, we've already had a budget meeting, and we have one next week. And the board is going to be setting priorities according to the strategic plan that we put together in alignment with the goals of the department heads. And it's going to take some time, but we have specific goals that we want to reach.
So this zero-based budgeting, is this based on needs or wants, or is it based on, when we talk about bare bones, and when you talk about envisioning 5 and 10 years from now, does that mean they will be able to move on and move forward with some of these things? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. To answer your question, yes to both of those questions. In order to move forward, you have to really examine where you're at financially. That is the piece. But you also have to have a vision. Where do we think we're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, and how can we financially sustain that type of service? Now, mind you, 32 people are on the payroll to manage for 10,000 people in our village. You know, we're taking care of 10,000 people for water, sewer, the streets, the sidewalks. That is a huge, significant number. So, but it's not cheap.
No.
Personnel is our biggest portion of the budget, and of course costs are going up as far as health insurance, retirement, workman's compensation. Those types of fixed costs are going up. So this board is an active board. We've really teamed, and on December 30th we put together a plan based upon 7 frameworks, and it is a vision. And it is multi-year goals. Are we going to accomplish every one of them? No, no. But it is a vision, and we have wonderful staff. But again, it costs money. Our budget is about $6.4 million. Okay, our revenue stream is about 3.9, and the costs are going up. And we're looking at our debt load, which is very important, just because of the interest rate alone. I'm really proud to say that we were able to just pay off our fire department to a tune of close to $700,000. We're saving the taxpayers $89,000. just paying off that debt. So I'm really
Is that
proud of that.
Saving an interest because
An
it's
interest,
made.
yes.
So where do you see then the difference coming from? Where do you see budget cuts coming in from? And I understand that everybody's going to be asked to, but there's always programs that are cut more than others. And have you been able to look at that? And are you anticipating more cuts in certain areas than others?
Well, what I am going to be proposing for the board to consider, working with the budget officer, is to stay in alignment with what we did last year. We need to look at our spending. We cut our spending 10% across the board last year. We decreased our debt last year. We did not raise taxes last year. We did not raise the water and sewer rates last year. I want to keep in line with that. Now, I am a realist in saying, you know, am I going to be able to do that? Is the board going to be able to do that? They're going to have to make some tough decisions. So we do have an audit committee, the deputy mayor and myself, and we're going to be meeting with each department. They've already submitted their plans to our budget officer, but now they have to come and talk to the audit committee and say this is what we need. It's not the same old just keep flipping the budget over the same each year. We really have to examine our goals.
So you're actually going to have a justification process as part of your budget, and
Yes.
you're going to have to answer questions about what they've proposed.
Yes,
That's-
yes. And we've asked the department heads, well, just our village superintendent alone, we've asked him for a 5-year plan on the roads and the water and sewer systems. Because, as you know, JoAnn, they're antiquated.
Yes.
They're antiquated. And we do have a plan, but it's very expensive. Just for a mile of road in the village, we have to budget about $150,000 per year. We get $75,000 back in CHIPS money. But we'd like to do all the roads. But, you know, you have to be realistic.
Yeah. Have you thought about partnering up with one of the universities and looking at ways to cut costs? And I was just thinking about winter here, and we know we have a lot of snow and ice. And unfortunately, we do a lot of sanding and salt, and we know that salt just does havoc to our environment, does havoc to our cars, right? I lived on Main Street for less than a year, and stuff that I had out in my front had turned to rust. And I was just thinking of ways that we could cut. I was wondering if there was ways to cut costs there, plus save our environment when we're talking about infrastructure and winter up here. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it lasts 6 months.
Yes, it has been quite the winter. We share services quite a bit already. We work with the county, we work with the town, we work with our 2 universities, we work with the state DOT. They are responsible for the Main Street.
Ah.
Yes. However, we do help out with that. So shared service is very important. And one of the goals of the board is to look at more shared services within our highway departments.
Okay.
How can we work closer together? Is there a vision with the county? You know, can we work closer with the university? So that is one of the goals, to have that conversation. It's very important.
Very nice. How about the tax rates? There seems to be some discrepancy about how much we as citizens, property owners, pay in our taxes, and we seem to pay a lot more than other counties in New York State. Can you explain that?
Well, for the village of Canton, as with any other university village, there's a lot of properties off the tax roll. So for the 100% of the property owners, 34% of us, you and I, pay 100% of the taxes.
That's exactly the same situation we have here in Potsdam.
Yes.
And it's hard to be one of those property owners.
It is. It is fiscally stressful on us. And I think Potsdam's a little bit higher. You might be at 70%. I think we're at 66%. The problem is there's so many properties off the tax rolls, and we don't have pilot programs for all of those properties. However, the investment into the community from the 2 universities is huge economically, just with the sales tax alone. And they do assist the village in different ways. So we're really appreciative of those 2 universities. Now, we pay $10.44 per assessed value, or per $1,000 of assessed value. And I pledged during my campaign that we need to decrease that. We need to decrease that. And there are some strategies that we can try to do that. Shifting some of the costs we have 3 different budget lines. We may be able to shift some of the costs from one area to another. For instance, from the general fund, we may be able to shift into the water and sewer funds as far as personnel is concerned. We need to work more diligently in getting businesses in our community to help with the sales tax to decrease that. It's very difficult. 2 years, if I'm sorry, JoAnn, if I may.
Go ahead.
We did raise water and sewer taxes.
Yes.
2 years in a row. Last year we did not. And the reason being is because everybody uses those services. Everybody, 100% of the property owners uses those services, and we need the revenue in order to maintain the infrastructure of the village.
Particularly if you're going to do any major renovations and reworking of those older systems, you're going to have to put some money aside to do that work.
Yes.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what is interesting to me is a lot of strategies for communities is to bring businesses, is to give them tax incentives, right? But we're already in a tax deficit as is. Do you think that this would be a good thing for us to do to offer a tax incentive, a 10-year waiver on certain taxes if businesses come in?
Well, I'm sure you're aware of the Startup New York program that is being proposed, and that's going to impact our village. A 10-year tax-free incentive for companies to come to the village within a mile, I believe, of the SUNY campus. The state is already offering that. However, what the reality is, we have a 2% tax cap that's already been implemented, and now our governor is proposing a 2-year tax freeze. That is going to be so difficult to be able to figure out because we have questions now. We're under the 2% tax cap. We've done that for the last 3 years. I'm really proud of that. But how are we going, because once we set a tax rate, we're going to have to keep that for 2 years, but stay under the 2% tax. It's very challenging to understand. And it's my understanding also that our governor wants us to share more services and work closer together. Well, I just sent NICOM 3 pages worth of how our village shares services already. We're already doing that up here in the North Country.
That's right. That's the way we've survived this long is by being creative and working together. So it's pretty hard to wring any more savings out of that particular towel.
Yes, yes.
I agree.
So it's all about the money.
Exactly.
How about, how is your personnel doing in the village?
We're fully staffed. We certainly could always use more staff, but we've done a great job. Our employees work very hard. Our DPW, they've had a challenging winter, and they've done an excellent job. And I'm really proud of our staff. We will be hiring this summer, as usual, for our recreation programs and for our golf course. So,
but that's a big income generator for you as well, right?
The golf course is. It really manages itself financially. However, it is the goal of the board. We want to see additional revenues from our recreation programs, and we have a beautiful pavilion. We have a beautiful golf course, and we believe that we can increase those revenues so that we can start offsetting some of the costs and plan for the future as far as upgrading those structures.
So in terms of hiring, what type of person do you hire for those jobs? They're normally short-term, right, because it's seasonal?
They're seasonal laborers. Our recreation department does a wonderful job with all of their summer programs. So the swimming lessons, for instance, we need to hire lifeguards that are WSI certified. For the golf course, we need general laborers to maintain that course to the quality that we have now. And it's not an easy job. So high school diploma or equivalency, and someone that has a strong work ethic and wants to do a good job for the village.
It's a good place for a young person to get a good experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it
for
is.
a summer job like that. I know my son was a lifeguard in Potsdam, and he learned a lot about responsibility
Yes.
through that process. That was kind of an eye-opener in many ways.
Yes, it's not an easy job
No,
being
no,
a
it is
lifeguard.
not.
No.
And there's also a kind of a social aspect to it as well, in terms of making sure that you're serving everybody and aware of all of the circumstances that your young recreation students are coming from.
And we have a beautiful beach, and we're really proud of that.
Yeah.
And so when do you start advertising these, just for people's interest?
Hopefully by the end of the month we'll have an advertisement out, and we'll be
okay.
accepting applications and going through the process.
Okay.
We have a lot of students that want to return. You know, it's a good paying job.
So going from seasonal hiring, what do you see as the long-term constructions or maintenance going on in our town?
Well, again, we have a 5-year plan for the infrastructure of the village, the water sewer lines. They need to be upgraded as far as the valves and flushing the mains and make sure that they're in good working order. We are investigating a second water source in our village. We're in need of that. We do get our water from Waterman Hill, and that pipeline alone is, I think, maybe close to 100 years old. And so
You presume there's at least a few leaks, and maybe you're not getting 100% efficiency out of it.
Yeah. So right now we're testing sites, and that's going to be an additional cost for our village. Once we find a site and start to drill and get that all set up, you're talking probably $1.2 million just to get that going.
Yeah, and I don't think that is something that most of us villagers understand or know, that we do need another water source. And where are you testing right now?
We've tested 2 sites at St. Lawrence University, I believe one at SUNY Canton, and another, can't remember the last one. So
So will this increase the water and sewer charges then?
it may,
also?
it may. It may.
But the nice thing is that Canton has wonderful tasting water, so
Yes.
it's a good value in terms
We-
of the quality of the product.
I believe the last 2 years we have won in water quality in the county.
So that's a good thing.
Maybe we should start bottling it and selling it as a revenue
That's
source.
right. When the new brewery isn't bottling beer, you can get them to bottle Canton water.
There you go.
Buy local. And besides water and sewer, and back to road construction, we just got done paving Main Street, and it's beautiful. Do we have any plans for any other paving road
Oh
work?
yes, yes. There's always going to be a paving season. Right now we're looking at Judson Street and J Street.
Nice.
However, we have a 5-year plan, and if we had the revenue and the workforce, we could do more. But there's only so much you can do at a time, and it is so expensive. It is very, very expensive.
And it looks like this is going to be a worse year than other because the price of gasoline is going up. That means the price of anything related to oil or road construction material is also going to be more expensive. So
The
that's
asphalt
gonna-
alone,
yeah, exactly.
it just keeps going up and up.
Okay.
You had mentioned, Marianne, about your Canton Community Action and your waterfront revitalization plans. Can you give us a little thumbnail about what your plan is there for those two, that aspect of your of your village life?
Well, the Canton Community Action Plan is a long-term, it's a 5-year plan for which there is an economic development steering committee that oversees, it's a group of business associates as well as village and town representatives that are going through this and enacting the goals as much as we can. The waterfront revitalization plan, we do have a waterfront advisory committee, and this is some really exciting news that we have. One of the goals is to certainly increase the usage of our waterfront. We have beautiful waterways, and we are part of a 3 municipal grant that has been funded through the CFA process. We are doing a feasibility study on a whitewater park.
Oh, wow.
In the village.
In the village?
In the village.
Nice.
Oh,
Very nice. That'll be
so exciting.
Yeah.
real attractive as a tourist destination. That'll be very interesting to see how that develops.
And
We're
nice.
partnering with, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking, and nice for the 4 colleges, right? Something to.
Well, as you know, Colton
That's
already
right,
has
that's right.
has that type of venue, and the Village of Potsdam is part of this also. But our small piece is the feasibility study to see if it can be done right there on the Grass River in the village. And it's not a large park. It's not the fast rapids kayaking type of competition, but it is a nice a project that we're looking at right now.
Well, it'll be nice for families too.
Yes,
right? Because some of
absolutely.
those water parks are just a little bit too much to take children on, and
Right.
we do have a young population here, and it would be nice for families to go out and enjoy the day together on the water.
So that's moving forward.
That's
At a
as
good
well.
pace.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good to hear. One of the things I wanted to chat with you about, Marianne, is last month we did a panel on poverty at SUNY Canton, and you were part of that. One of the several speakers, and you gave some statistics and some information about families in your village and your town who are in trouble financially and at the lower end of the spectrum. And I wondered if you could share a little bit of what you talked about there at the panel, as well as in terms of how the community has responded to your presentation, and what plans you have to maybe address the needs and issues of that particular part of your population.
Well, and I appreciate you asking me to sit on that panel, because just the data alone, I was surprised at. The average person doesn't think about numbers in that respect. So just the HEAP alone, the heating data of how many people in our community receive the HEAP benefit, I think that was 319. The temporary assistance, the food stamps, 1,000 people.
And that's out of a village of 10,000.
Well, our village population without the 2 colleges is about 6,400.
Okay.
So that still is
That's a
significant.
very significant number, yes it is.
It is. So after that panel, I did bring it back to the village board, and we're starting conversations on what we can do as a village board to address the issue. We have a lot of wonderful services now in our village, but how can we partner with them? How can we help them sustain their services to the community? So we're looking at that. The one new thing that came out is that Garden Share is looking at putting together a food policy council,
Okay.
which is a group of people that addresses the entire need of the food situation in our community. Carol Pinchon is part of Garden Share, and she brought that to the table, so we're going to be looking at maybe partnering with them.
So that would be something specific to Canton, but a model that other communities could use, because of course Garden Share operates at the county level as
Yes,
well. So
yes.
that's very exciting.
And I believe the statistic, at least for St. Lawrence County, is around 70% of our population at any given time has food scarcity, which means they don't have food on their table. So, and it seems like Canton has a fair share of people living in poverty. I also looked up some statistics because I knew we were talking about poverty issues today, which is, where my passion lies. And we are between a 17 and 18% poverty rate in Canton alone. And those are, and what I think is really important is how do we get not only we have these services, but how do we get people that are qualified to use these services? Because we know, as children don't eat at school, right? And unless somebody realizes that somebody's not eating, they're not going to eat. And sometimes the school lunch program is the only meal they get throughout the day, right? How do we reach those kids and get their parents, because there's such a stigma of using social services, right? Because many, many different reasons. How do we get it out there so people will use them, right? Because you can't have a healthy body or a healthy brain if you're not eating.
And the other thing is that Canton is fortunate. You have a strong church community.
Yes,
from
we
a
do.
variety of those. I know a lot of those folks find ways to work together on some of these issues. So when you look at the government-based services and the community-based services, it seems like at the village level, that's a great opportunity for you to help put all of those pieces together and help to make sure that there aren't any cracks that people are falling through. And if someone doesn't qualify for one kind of help, perhaps there's another kind of help that they can qualify for. And to do what JoAnn is talking about is to make this a seamless service that people don't have to feel any sense of stigma about, but literally it is how this community responds to people in need. And that's one thing I think we've all learned in the last few years as the economy has downturned, is that the many people who never ever envisioned being in need are now in need. The poverty rate in suburbia is very, very high. And it's also very, very invisible because of how people are not, they don't look like they're maybe living any different because they're still in their home, but what's going on inside that home is not the same as what it used to be a few years ago.
Yeah, and we do call rural counties, right? We do call them the invisible poor because they're out of sight, right? We have this mistaken notion that most poor people live in inner cities, and that's not necessarily true. And although if you are living in poverty in the city, it is sometimes hard to get resources, the cities also have more resources than you do out in rural areas, right? So, how do they get health care? I noticed that one of the big issues for health care in our communities is anyone accepting dental, right? So, and where do you go? And we already have a shortage of, even if you have health insurance, right,
but
getting into a doctor,
right?
So we don't even have enough providers in this area, even if they did take the incentives from county or state or federal. So, yeah.
The data, I need to make a correction. It's for the 13617 area code, so it includes the town also. So that's important, and the town and village, we work really good together.
Again, it's that
team.
sense of community, and
we
it's
care.
how and it's how we have to learn to address a lot of these issues, that they can't be addressed only in a government fashion. They can't only be addressed through these kinds of programs, but the community has to come together and recognize that there is an issue that we can find ways to address together, and that is what community is all about.
Well, and it has to be a buy-in from the community,
That's
too.
right.
I mean,
That's
it
right.
really has to be a belief that everybody is worthy of these services and that we need to come together. And that's the lovely thing, I believe, about Canton, is there is that belief system behind it.
I will be, I attend the Mayor's Association's meetings for the county, and we have a meeting next week, and I'm going to be starting to talk about this with our fellow
Good. I think that
mayors,
would
too.
be. I think that would be interesting to start that dialogue at that level, because what works in one community is often translatable to another community. You just need to share those models, and that's a great way to do that at the county level, is to get those people together who are working at the municipal level to say, this is how my community is responding. What are you folks doing? And maybe we can share some ideas. So that's a great model to use.
And JoAnn, Also on the panel, what I talked about is our schools are becoming social services agencies. Schools are actually creating backpack programs
I love
where
that idea.
every Friday they pack up a bag or a backpack with food and send it home
That was
with the
some-
children.
That is fabulous, and it's sad that we have come to that,
Yes,
right? But
it is.
seems to be that's the only place that we can reach children, and that's wonderful because I do worry about kids going home and not being able to
Well,
get
that's
a
right.
meal.
That's right. You know, a weekend's long enough. A week's school vacation is much, much longer. that's for
Absolutely,
sure.
absolutely.
So, in our last minute or so, Mary Ann, what would you like to end on in terms of what the folks in Canton can expect this spring, when, of course, this spring ever gets here?
Well, they can expect the continuation of this board working very hard. We've only been in office for 3 months, and we've put together a strategic plan with many goals under 7 frameworks, and we're a working board. We're not a rubber stamp board. Our strategic plan is to get things done.
Well,
My goal is to relieve the fiscal stress of the 34% of us that pay those taxes, and I'm going to do my best to present a budget to the board, and then it's going to be their decision if they want to change that. But it's about priorities and needs and taking care of the infrastructures.
well,
So-
thank you very much for coming in today. We really appreciate this, and we will look forward to having you back another time, maybe to talk about your poverty initiatives or some other community development type things like that. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Ms. Page.
Yes, and I know when to come in. Anyways, we're out of time. But thank you for having us at North Country Matters. And until next time, remember, North Country Matters.